Hi, everybody. I'm Marcus Weldon.
Hi, everyone. And I'm Phil Reid. And this is the Directors
Cut on Trade. A special guest. This man needs no introduction, but we're going to give him an introduction anyway. Mr. Dan Ringo, man, thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, brothers, for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
So, Dan, if you would you go into your current role and what all that encompasses? I mean, as I look at Senior Vice President of Operations, many people, operations means a lot of different things. What actually do you do in your role and what all does it encompass?
Well, currently my role with Walker Miller Energy Services, I am the Senior Vice President of Operations. So that encompasses pretty much running the business from an operational standpoint. All the programs, program managers, and all their service offerings eventually roll up to me through their different directors and program managers. We are an energy waste reduction company. We also are an energy equity implementer for various utilities across 4 states. So that's in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Illinois, as well as Missouri.
Okay. Energy waste reduction. So, me being in the business, my wheels start turning because that's what all I'm trying to do all the time. Switching over to LED bulbs. Many people don't realize, but getting rid of the ballast too, because that's ghost voltage right there. Talking about appliances that use less energy, finding different ways. So your company goes in and handles that for other companies. You tell other companies what they should be doing.
All of that encompasses, and so we run various programs depending on the utility. So the utility has requirements based upon them by the government, as well as internal initiatives that they are looking to, number one, reduce the carbon footprint across this portfolio. And what they do is they partner with other companies like Walker Miller Energy Services. I don't know why I can't talk this morning, to actually implement some of the energy efficiency programs that they have. So you just touched on one as far as the home energy consultation that you see when you see, and if you're in the Detroit area, you see the DTE trucks with the home energy consultation on site. That's actually Walker Miller Energy Services employees or team members actually out in the field, going into homes, talking with residents, homeowners and building owners about how they can reduce their energy. So exactly what you're saying about reducing their light bulbs, usage, wattage usage, implementing power strips that reduce ghosts or eliminate ghost voltage and things of that nature. That's what we do.
Nice. Now, Dan, you like I said earlier, you're a man of many talents. Let's go back to the beginning. How did you you get into this? How did you get into the trade first? I know that you reading your book, you were in the Air Force, right?
Yes. But you almost can go back before that. I was going to 547 right out of high school, but I didn't cut it. I wasn't mentally, mature enough and ready to do that right out of high school. I was going into the boiler operated program, which was a year-long program, and I didn't finish it. And so I ended up having odd jobs in between when I graduated high school in 91 to when I went into the Air Force in 93. So between that 2-year gap, I did a lot of odd jobs, eventually went into the Air Force in 93, and eventually got into HVAC when I was in the Air Force, and then worked various positions, but also ended up working at a large boiler plant, which then, I took and used that skill when I got out.
Right.
Was that your choice, or was that just like one of the options? When I say your choice, did you seek that out specifically?
No, Phil. So listen, my job actually going into the Air Force was as intelligence operations apprentice.
Okay.
In the security clearance training and basic training, I disclosed things in my family, because I was always thought, if you ask me, you already know. So they asked me things about people in my family regarding illegal activity. Once I disclosed that I was aware, that disqualified me from that position. But because my ASVAB scores were higher than average, I was able to select another position. Talked with my father beforehand. He said, find yourself a trade, see if they got HVAC or boilers. They did. I selected that. That's how I got into that.
Okay.
It was meant to be because it happened. but that's not, you know, that's not what I went in for.
I can definitely empathize with you there because you know, I was in school, you know, different. I was in college and had a daughter, had to come home, and you know, I applied for a job at the casino and I applied for an administrative assistant. My plan, you know, I'm gonna be a good administrative assistant,
Right.
go to school, finish up, and then figure out
Right.
everything. And
Right.
then they called and said, well, you know, you got some experience working in maintenance and being a laborer and stuff like that. And then,
Absolutely.
you know, so
Absolutely.
it kind of took me there. Like you said, it was meant to be.
Absolutely. I always tell people, you know, you have to be open when you hear advice from an elder, because they saying things. My father knew exactly because he had been in the Air Force, and he had him in a clerical position. This is back in the late 50s, early 60s, and he said it was nothing he could do when he got out with that. He was like, find you something that's called a transferable skill. And so that's why I took that advice, and I haven't looked back. And just to your point, I had a son too right out of high school, so that was really the impetus for me going into the military and having these odd jobs. I was bouncing from job to job and just wasn't really able to take care of my responsibilities in the way I was raised to take care of my responsibilities. So that's the same thing. So it got me into the military and it got me to look at something I would use even in or even if I decided to get out.
Okay.
Yeah, you talk a lot about your father in your book, and he was very, very important in your life, and obviously your mentor, and obviously he's your father. In chapter 6, you had a death, divorce, and disease. I thought that was one of the most touching chapters.
Okay, thanks, appreciate that.
Yeah, you were going through a lot, man, and your father passed. You know, you had your divorce, and there was a lot going on. But that was also the chapter where you stepped into the role and found Local 324, correct?
Absolutely. So I told you, so the summer before this, it's a summer that they're going to merge because 547 was financially defunct. People don't know that. But it wasn't financially defunct because there was a lack of money coming into the union. It was poor spending habits. They were spending money in areas and ways and taking on business that wasn't, if you know, still people understand, just like a church, just like a union, nonprofits are businesses.
Right,
and 547 was spending a lot of money representing employees that they really, from a business standpoint, shouldn't. So when you look at the salaries of the business reps and the expenses to operate this local union and to compete on a visibility scale with the carpenters, the teamsters, because they're all in competition for political access and political clout. But okay, Marcus, you're over the Teamsters. Phil, you're over UAW. Your employees each are making $35, $40 an hour. So that means your union dues are going to be much higher per employee. Well, 547, instead of their boiler operators and first class engineers making the same, contributing the same, they start going out to broaden their scope. So they're representing, God respect them, lunch ladies and people who are lower wage employees that couldn't support the union. So the union became upside down. Okay, but they were growing in their administrative scope. Then you had 324, who was financially almost defunct because their employees really don't work year round because they're outside workers. Okay, and then they had more retirees and they had employees there. So the base is trying to support the top, and it's just not enough wages to support the pensions. So they needed to kind of say, how do we merge from an administrative standpoint? The can't merge the funds, but you can merge the administrative staff. You can do a lot of consolidation and have one local union. And that was discussions that were going on maybe a couple years. And then in 2009, when they decided to pull the trigger, I just so happened to be going through a divorce, had been in DC, clerking with the AFL-CIO. I was one of 8 law students selected nationwide to do that. So that was an honor. And so in there, we met Richard Trumka, who was the president of the AFL-CIO, met a few labor leaders across the nation, and obviously must have said a few things that impressed him because when he then contacted John Hamilton, I was happening to be clerking in a federal courthouse with Victoria Roberts, who's a federal judge, and I got the call to just see if he wanted to meet. But the funny part, as I put in the book, is that I was going through a divorce. I had quit my job with the Detroit Public Schools maybe 9-10 months earlier, and I didn't get a clerkship with the Wolverine Bar Association that I hoped to. And I didn't know how I was going to pay my mortgage because I was getting a divorce. My mother was living with me, and my loan for law school was denied. I was able to get to pay tuition, but to actually live on, I forget what they call that loan. It's a different type of loan they call, but I got denied. So I'm driving like, how I'm going to do this? My divorce is final this week, and my ex, she's moving out. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna have to pay this mortgage, and I got that call that Monday, and I just went to church that Sunday before and took $3 to $5 and put it in the. I had been to church in years, and my man William Booker Riggs, shout out to William Booker Riggs, got me to church, and I put $3 to $5 in the collection plate. Man, I got that call the next day, and it changed my life.
Power of tithes.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's true. Man, I'm telling you. I said, man, people talk about water to wine, man. God worked a miracle that day. That's real.
Absolutely. So it's almost fair as you go through the description, you talk about the different unions and how they were kind of defunct because they were having to take on more administrative staff than the collective people they were.
They had more going out than coming in, Phil.
Yeah. I was trying to say it more eloquent, but thank you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it basically sounds like that 324 is the house that Dan Ringo built.
It's without a doubt. And shout out to John Hamilton, wherever he is. I mean, whatever people may say about him, he gave me the keys. He said, this is the guy. He trusted that attorney. And so to that point, when I went and met with John Hamilton, he didn't know me from Adam. I didn't know him. I drove out there from the courthouse, and we talked for 4 hours in his office, and he hired me on the spot. And whatever in that conversation he picked up, he said, you understand it. Tell us how it should be. And so I devised up what contracts, because it was 225 collective bargaining agreements. And he told me what agents I would have, how to divide them. Well, he didn't tell me. I divided them regionally. I put a East director, a West director, and pretty much set up the whole stationary division. And I think it's still the same unless it's changed any. But yeah, so I set up the whole 324 for the stationary side. I sat on all the pensions for 324 as well as the ones that came for 547. I sat on the training fund, the pension fund, the health and welfare fund for both. So you had 324 still, then you had the stationary side that had separate pension, training, and health and welfare funds. So that's what rose my profile in the area, because now you're starting to go to a lot of political meetings, a lot of business meetings. I'm in the office with Governor Granholm. I'm, meeting with Dave Bing, and I'm on this committee. So that's when people say, man, so the whole thing of the book of Boiler Room to Boardroom, because some people knew you were working in the boiler room, and then they see you on the news. It's like, well, what happened? It was a lot that happened in between, and your life can change overnight if you're open to it. But it all stems from starting in the trades. I built a name because all the licenses that I had got, the way I applied myself, getting my boiler operator, my thirds, my seconds, my first fridge, my journeyman, my contractors, my American Society of Power Engineers, my chief powerhouse city of Dearborn, all those licenses then built a reputation where then I started teaching, tutoring. And then once I taught so many people, they asked me to run for union steward. Then when I ran for union steward, I was the #1 vote getter for 547. And the second guy was like so many votes behind me, they was like, he's pretty well popular within this union. Now we need to make him a business rep. So understanding that they had an angle, as well as I'm young and coming up in my career, they was like, we need to attach ourselves to this guy because he has the ear of the people. So yeah. So, and then going to law school was like a thing where I went to a labor negotiation field, and everybody on the other side of the table had law degrees, and nobody on our side had a bachelor's degree.
So you said, okay, I'm gonna fix that.
I need to fix that because that's not a fair fight. You know what I'm saying? We got going in against the Monstars. You know what I'm saying? Some Looney Tunes.
You was bringing a knife to a gunfight, in the words of Sean Connery.
Exactly. So again, it was just constantly working, constantly grinding. But it all still rooted in that basis of the trades.
So did you get any pushback? A lot of times, like when you're in a union and you start to elevate and you get into leadership positions, and as you say in your book, like you go from the boardroom to the boiler room to the boardroom. A lot of times people in the union hall that are in the boiler room still look at you now as a traitor. Did you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Marcus. I tell people this all the time. when you get ready to promote from I'll say from frontline, from being a frontline member to a frontline supervisor, are you prepared to deal with the change in the dynamic of the relationship you have?
Right, right.
And people always say yes because they're focused on getting to where they think they want to be. But if you have not developed that callus on your skin, if your skin hasn't thickened by an inch, you are not ready.
Yeah.
If you're not ready to be talked about, lied on, you know, and misinterpreted. If you're not ready for that, if you are not ready to watch your words and and think of the impact they may have on others before you say them, you're not ready. And I got all of that because no one told me that. Again, my father was a boiler operator, loved him to death, but that was as far as he decided to go in his career. So there was really nobody that could tell me what it's like to supervise other people.
Yes.
Especially people you had just worked with. So we dig in a ditch one day, and the next morning, I'm on top of the hill telling you, you know, more dirt's coming in, we got to go faster. And you looking like, man, what's this dude think he is? Somebody differently that they didn't know, totally different. So the pushback that you get was just the change in the relationship that you're not aware of. If I would have been aware of, I would have been able to handle it a lot better. And I think that's where a lot of people have to fully assess whether or not they're really able to go from playing on the floor to coaching. You know what I'm saying? I posted a video a while ago. Michael Jordan said, it's not in me to be a coach. And he gave the reasons why. And I thought it was beautiful. It's like, listen, and that's great. Keep Michael Jordan on the floor. Keep having put up 40 a night. Keep Kobe on the floor putting up 40 a night. Just because they're the greatest player don't mean they're going to be the greatest coach because they know the game.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a thing that the pushback that I got, man, was just incredible. Lost a lot of people who I thought were friends. No matter how often you try to explain the business side of it, and you have to be mindful of what you share because how it can be interpreted. And then there are certain confidences that you're expected to keep now because you're part of management that you feel like, man, you know, so it's a dichotomy that you have to, or a balancing line that you have to straddle until you fully feel confident enough to really understand where you belong and where you are.
You know, Dan, what you just said right there is a snippet of, I think, you know, obviously your life, but Marcus and my life as well, because we all came up from the front line. And and I can tell you that dealing with people that, you know, that were your friends and all that stuff, and are your friends, it's still tough when you tell them, hey, that's not a move I can make. I can't quite make that move because I'm in a different situation. Or, you know, even going along the lines of, hey, no, this is why the decision was made. I can't really go that no further into it because there's certain things I can't discuss. And then they're looking at you like, what? And, you know, I remember I personally made the decision because I was working under an electrician for over 4 years, a master electrician, and my job would not compensate him to use his license as keeper of records so that he could sign for my hours. And so I said, all right, I can be stuck here for the rest of my life, or I can start trying to make moves. And so I made moves. But my dad told me, my dad, you know, worked at Ford for 33 years, you know, and then retired as soon as he could, and ain't worked since, and just been chilling. But he told me, he said, if you go to management, everybody's going to hate you. And I told my dad then, I said, it doesn't have to be that way. You know what I mean? Because I can be for the company while at the same time making sure that I'm advocating for my team, you know. And I think that a lot of people think that it's that you can't do that, you know. And so so that was kind of my platform. I had to get my skin had to thicken up a little bit, but at the same time, I'd tell them, I said, look, I want to make life easier for you, you know what I'm saying? Because I done been on that side and I know how it goes. But having to make that change, man, like I said, like you know how sometimes you get the little goosebumps because I'm saying like it just brought back memories of my own career.
It doesn't discriminate. I don't care who it is, man. This goes with race, gender, no matter what. It's human nature. And I tell people, no matter what process that I'm managing, if we're dealing with human beings, I'm good. I can find success if we're dealing with human beings because I understand human nature. And but I'm 49 now. Now, if you go back to 29, I have no idea. You know what I'm saying? So and that's the difference is I'm old enough to know, young enough to still do. And that's the beauty in it. But it's only and I'm a Star Wars geek, but it's like they say only Sith deal in absolutes. Most people like you can't be both. If you're over there, you're over there. Like you said, can I lead my team and advocate? Can I represent the company and advocate for my team? Yes, you can do both. But you have to understand that when they call a players only locker room, that you're not invited. Now, see, that was hard for me to understand too, because I felt like I was still part of the team. No, you're a coach now, and when they huddle up, you gotta let them have that.
Yep.
You gotta let them have that, and there's certain things that I've had to learn that is just, if you want to be over here, this is the life you chose, and so you're no longer part of that team in that regard. You gotta, and I think the locker room and the coach is a great example. You celebrate together, but there are going to be certain things that you're just not going to know, and hopefully you got star players on there that are leaders that are all pushing towards the goal that you're trying to lay out. And so, again, and that's just more so, we're talking more so leadership and management. And I don't want to, to change it to there, because I have a lot of, trades talk to talk about, but it's like, but that's to answer your question. It was a journey, and it's still a journey, but I just understand it and see it a lot better than I did earlier on.
I'll say this, you are handling the journey well. You talked about coming out of high school, having a son at an early age, and then having to go on, or not necessarily having to, but choosing to go on to the Air Force and then figuring things out. And then you just gave your age. I didn't ask, but you just said 49 years old. So from high school to the boiler room to the boardroom, and now at 49, you're sitting there. That's still, that's not long in the tooth in terms of career. Many people who are in vice president roles and things of that nature are a much higher age, and that age is coming down as we progress towards the future. But I'm saying that's still a huge accomplishment. So I just want to go ahead and say that and make sure that people that hear it, can understand that that's a hell of an accomplishment.
Well, no, I appreciate that. Well, this is actually my second go round. When I was 39, I was vice president of operations for another company. And then I was 41, I was chief operating officer for a local company here called Continuum, which is owned by Redico, a facilities management company. And at the same time, when I was chief operating officer of Redico, I was also senior vice president of the sister company, American House. So from an executive experience, before I started my own company, that was something that has already been done. And we if whatever you guys want to ask me, well, how did you get here? How did you go back? Everything is fair game, but it's a journey. As you said, it's a journey, and how well you're able to identify opportunities. And Marcus and I have had these conversations prior, and I'm always, tell people, how well are you able to identify an opportunity? Most people don't see it as an opportunity because it may have some obstacles attached to it. Mm-hmm. Well, that's all it is an opportunity. But it's being presented to you, and it's saying, well, here are the obstacles, and you have to weigh the return on investment for you. So you can go. I've learned now that you can go fast, quick. God can bless you immediately, change your life. Are you putting in the work to prepare yourself to be ready for when the opportunity can take you from 0 to 6?
Luck equals opportunity meets preparation. Absolutely. So I'm familiar with Continuum Services. I actually knew somebody that had done some work there, and I'm familiar with Sodexo. As a matter of fact, one of the contracts that my current department deals with is Sodexo, and so I'm getting more and more in tune with how they do business and all that good stuff. So yeah, I was not trying to just kind of like pass over those accomplishments as well.
No, not at all. And I'll tell you what, if you ever want to know how to do, just hit me up.
Absolutely. I definitely will. I just, like I said, I just want to make sure that people are hearing it, because I tell Marcus and I look at Marcus as like a brother to me, what I mean? And so I can remember when we were working together and he asked me a couple questions. I said, look, this is probably need to look at this because this is how things are going to go. And, and then he took it from there and ran, and it's been great. And I told him, I said, you're going to do better things than I ever dreamed about doing, because You already have the relationships, you know what I mean? I think he does one thing that you just said extremely well, which is identifying opportunities.
I was gonna get to Marcus is, and I've told him this too. Marcus is extremely adept to taking information, synthesizing it, and then applying it. It's only a few younger people that I know that able to do that. That I've been able to say something, or you can tell they've heard something, and it hits that chord, and they see the opportunity, and the next time you talk to them, they got it in motion.
Right.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
No, that's 100%. When I think of, I'm like, that's Marcus all day. That's Marcus all day. So yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a lot of his success comes from. He's not afraid to work. And so when you start looking at our trades background, it's rooted in actual physical labor. And so when you're able to take that and bring that to white collar employment, I've been able to excel and move past a lot of people, because not knocking white collar individuals who started their career solely in white collar, but it's a different work ethic applied to it that to me has delivered results that I don't think you could understand unless you have that similar background.
You know, Dan, you hit something there. I got to expand on it just a little bit, because I agree with you 1000%. It is the background of having to take care of business. Like, you know, when you are dealing with, and you know, I only got my third class refrigeration license, you know what I'm saying, in Detroit. As far as licenses, I took class to try and go get my first, passed class. And then I started working out at U of M, and I was like, I don't know if I need it. So
absolutely.
But dealing with working in the trades and stuff like that, it's you have deadlines, you got to get stuff done. And so you're right. I think sometimes people in white collar don't have that same get up and go. And that's what makes them not as successful as the ones that do. Because there are some who have been strictly white collar and they go get it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that is something that in many avenues of work, that's the intangible that truly sets people apart. Willing to sit back on your heels.
Without doubt, it's the way we can approach the same project. The three of us will probably approach the same project similarly to compare to people on the same project who don't have our background. Will approach it with a different type of urgency. We understand because the things that we've done has directly impacted someone's safety or comfort. You know, it can be life or death. When you start talking about boilers, if I don't stay on top of my game, this thing can explode and kill a bunch of people. Mm-hmm. So the way I approach my work regarding safety and regarding protecting assets, protecting life and limb, and all of those things, it's kind of infused into whether we're talking finances, you know, whether we're talking contracts. It's going to be I've just noticed it. So it's like, give me somebody who's kind of done something with their hands, had to apply their mind to bring something in the concept a little more so than somebody who hasn't, because they understand it or they look at it a little differently. So that's why I wish that everybody would take some type of trade or learn how to do something, because, and hopefully we'll get to this, I always tell people it's the fastest way in entrepreneurship. It is absolutely the fastest way.
Go ahead, Marcus.
No, I said we can actually, I was going to pivot and go that direction. That's off of what Dan just said, as far as the trade being a step in the right direction towards entrepreneurship. I expound upon that, Dan. I'll let you go ahead. I mean, one of the things I know that you have an ambition to create a trade school. You know, when I first met you, you know, that was, you know, you were a full steam ahead with that. And I said, man, this guy's got books, he's got licenses, he's got these law degrees, and he's trying to start a trade school. And I, you know me, man, that's my ambition and dream. And I've actually put in some work, and we're doing some heck of things. But talk about, you know, getting into the trade, leading into entrepreneurship. Walk us through that.
So I always tell people that we now the society has pushed upon our youth this whole living your best life, being a boss, you know, not working for anybody, but there's no substance under that. So it's a concept, but I look for where's the substance. So if you're not going to work for anybody, what are you producing that's going to allow you to not work for anybody? And so I always look at the trades, when you look over history of occupations, you know, law, medicine, all these things that didn't require necessarily formal education, that you worked under somebody, you apprenticed under someone, and you learned, you know, I always tell people whoever gave out the first degree, what degree did they have? So, you know, it's really just about knowledge base. So if you can learn a trade or something you can do yourself, then you can sell your labor, because we all sell our labor, whether you're working for a company, whether you're working for an individual client, you all are selling your labor, and you have to determine what your labor is worth. So once I felt as if I had mastered how to operate large, complex facilities management operations and had relationships, and being a minority and being a service-disabled veteran and earning that there's opportunities in that realm to expand a business, that's when I started a business. I had never thought about a business or owning my own business before then, but I was able to always, like Marcus and yourself, to hear an opportunity presented and say, okay, I hear that there's an opportunity there, let me go ahead and pursue it. But I felt as if I had the skills to do it myself. That's what allowed me to then turn the skills into an actual business. So I always tell people, that's learning something that you can do yourself will allow you to then step out and own your own business.
You just brought up being a minority. And while that's not the topic, you know what I'm saying, of everything that we're talking about, it does also play a role. So yes, in your travels and how you've, you know, matriculated from job to job and opportunity to opportunity, what role has being a Black man played, and what kind of pitfalls have you had to maneuver around or outsmart people in order to get where you are today?
I'm glad you touched on that, because it's if you listen to if you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard it, but if you haven't heard, it's a song that came out maybe a month or two ago. DJ Khaled, this guy did, and Jay-Z's verse. The reason why that verse was 4 minutes, because that man is in his 50s now. That man has done so much and overcame so much and dodged so many pitfalls put before him. He had to get it out, and it's a lyric he says in there. He said, "It's got to be crazy to y'all if we surprised."
Be surprised, yeah.
If I'm surprised and it's my life, it's got to be crazy to you. So, Phil, to your point, I've had to outsmart. Once I was able to step back and see how they perceived me, whether it was right or wrong, not how you have to have the confidence in yourself first. Okay, as a Black man, and you're going into areas where you're the only one there. But be mindful, right, wrong, or indifferent, of how people perceive you, because once you see how they see you, and they don't know that you know that, now you got a leg up. So I had to become mindful that my passion was intimidating to them. So then I started to look at, okay, I'm not going to be less passionate about my job or how I communicate, but I'm going to make sure that it's communicated in a way that they've bought in. I'm going to make sure the stereotypes, the erroneous stereotypes about work ethic is put to bed. I'm going to outwork everybody in this room. If the meeting is at 7, I'm here at 6:30. You know, when everybody's leaving the office, I'm here with the evening custodian. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's saying, God, my boss can say, hey, but please don't answer your phone for the weekend. Just take the weekend off. And I'm still going to work. So when you start to look at how the pitfalls is to understand how what the perception are about you, and being able to go around those pitfalls, you know, so to speak. But I've dealt with them all, and they all weren't necessarily directly addressed to me, but you know, the history of this country, you know that they exist, and you can perceive microaggressions when they occur. You know, so it's things that you can't be overly sensitive about, because rarely will people just come and say something directly racist or prejudicial to you, but it's the mannerism. So if you're able to pick up on that, understand, learn individuals, know your environment, and not necessarily be the first to react.
I like what you said. There. A few different things you said. Number one, you said figuring out their perception of you. So if I'm a young person hearing this, I'm saying, okay, so I need to kind of peep, you know what I'm saying, how people are looking at me and how I move, you know what I mean? And if I can understand what they think about how I move, then I can begin to influence that,
Absolutely.
to my favor.
Absolutely.
And so that's something I think people definitely need to hear. Anyone who's young in their career, they need to start hearing things like, being able to manipulate how people see you and stuff like that. I think outworking the perception of, there was a perception of Black people weren't hard workers, which I don't know how in the hell that's a perception, seeing as we built this damn country, but I digress. But at the same time, you said, okay, I'm gonna put that to bed too. I'm gonna outwork everybody. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You said showing up to a meeting early. When I was pledging my fraternity, we had a saying that early is on time and on time is late.
Exactly.
Exactly. And if you are showing up on time all the time, or if you're showing up late, that's they might not say nothing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But that's something that's always in the back of their mind. Look at this some gun, always late, blah, 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 just like the stereotype, and it moves on. So I appreciate that you touched on several different things there, because I think that's the thing that people need to hear if they're trying to make moves in their life.
And bringing value. So here's the thing, coming from the boiler room, coming from being an hourly employee, represented collective bargaining and all of that, I'll never forget, man, I was working, this is before I became vice president, mining opportunities. I moved to Chicago with Sodexo. I was working Sodexo here in Detroit. They got business in Chicago that I was part of the team to help them get it. Moved to Chicago. But my boss, the guy I reported to, was the vice president. This is before I became vice president. I wasn't his pick initially. He had a guy he wanted from Indiana, which was his man. Okay. This white guy. He never worked with me, didn't know me. My experience in this country and different people, yes, but he was racist. Okay. And he was doing things to try to undermine me. Okay. He was doing several things to undermine me, and I wouldn't let him do that. But I got to my breaking point, and I said, man, you know what? I have established enough relationships and proven enough value to the client that I said, you know what? I'm out. Put my 2 weeks in, and I'm going back to Detroit. And when I saw the fear on this grown man's face, this man, we walked outside, we walked across the street, we walked around the block. This man was pretty much begging me. I'm gonna say this man was begging me not to leave, and that taught me a lesson in leverage and providing value. Because what he wasn't that he liked me. What he was thinking was, I cannot replace what he's getting ready to take. And I cannot explain to those I report to why he's leaving when he's doing such a great job. Because I can't tell him he's leaving because of my BS.
And as much as I've undermined him,
I can't tell him he's leaving because I've been trying to undermine him and he's still succeeding. And he's just had enough. And that was a lesson I'm glad I got a chance to learn and put into practice while I was still, young enough to benefit from it.
And then it boosts your ego a little bit too, because it's like,
my God,
I see it.
I feel like an athlete. I feel like again, hey, look here. If you ain't gonna pay me, trade me. It was one of those moments, and because he was my, but the dynamics of the relationship shifted.
Yeah,
you understand what I'm saying? The power dynamic shifted from. But now I'm like, oh yeah, and it was not because of me being a black man, or I felt like I could call the minister or reverend or Al or anybody else. It was just the value that I was bringing. And I was like, once you bring value, man, and that's to any relationship, if they don't appreciate it, remove it.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes from anything, but that goes to that work ethic. He told me, you're the hardest working SOB I ever met. And I took it as a compliment, knowing how he felt about me, because I know he had to get through a lot to say that about me.
They ain't gotta like you, but they're gonna respect you.
He had to, man. And trust me, his boss, it wasn't no different. But when they had to remove him because of an incident, and they had to put me as vice president, it took them 5 months to make it permanent. But they had to, because they couldn't. The client wouldn't let them do anything differently. The client said, you got to make him vice president. That's who we want.
And if you don't, you're going to have problems.
Oh, you're going to have some serious problems.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I don't need to see you if Dan's here. Now, if Dan ain't here, do you want to be down here every day? And I don't think you can do the job Dan doing. See, that's the thing, is people have to, you get to do your job so well, they go, I don't know if he can do the job, if I can do the job he's doing, that's allowing me to sleep at night. Mm-hmm. So regardless, even if it's skilled trades, if you're a technician running a truck, does your employer or does your boss, whoever, does he feel like, man, if I lose this person here, now you never want to price yourself out the market, but you always want to understand your leverage. And in this country, oftentimes we don't understand the leverage we hold. When we talk collective economics, that's the whole thing. We don't understand the leverage we hold.
I don't even want to talk about collective economics because right now that's gonna take this conversation to a whole nother level.
I understand. But always it goes to the micro to the macro. If you can understand that from an individual, understand the leverage that you hold, but you got to know what value you bring. Mm-hmm. And I always talk about the dynamics in relationships. Oftentimes people don't understand or they're not willing to recognize the power they bring, because once you understand that, what are you going to do with it? Now that Phil understands, damn, I earned this company $3 million a year and it's a $5 million company. But that means if I'm not here, 60% of their revenue is gone. Now that once you realize that, what are you going to act on? Because if you don't act on it, now you start to look yourself in the mirror.
So there's a few different ways to kind of even get to that equation a little bit. Like, so one is, like you said, the earnings, you know what I'm saying? My actions are bringing in this much of the revenue, you know, and then, but there's other things that, you know, because in our field, let's be honest, you know, in maintenance and trade work and things of that nature, a lot of times we're costing money, you know what I mean? We're taking away, but people don't understand how that translates sometimes into savings money. They just look at the costs.
Oh, because I was going to challenge you on that, because the whole thing of looking at, you got predictive, you got preventative, and you got corrective. And if you're doing the corrective, it's because they haven't really done the preventative.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And so now you want to look at, then you add the capital improvement into that. And how are you planning for that? And then where are you spending it? And so again, that's providing value, giving your client or your customer a report to say, we've spent X amount in plumbing, X amount in electrical. And then you break it down, we spent X amount in plumbing at this particular location. Well, why in the hell we spend this amount in plumbing at this particular location? You know, now you can really determine where you're spending your resources. You know what I'm saying? And why you're spending your resources. It can be something as simple as, man, you got somebody doing plumbing on the side. They got a side business and they just know that they can just, you know, add
whatever they want.
Things there. Exactly. And you're not even knowing, but so it's how are you able to then bring these things out to say, now we can drill down on what's going on over here. So I think although you're doing the corrective, it's because you're not doing the preventative. And it's like hell. It's like surgery instead of, you know, taking your eating right. Then you all of a sudden now you got to go have some type of surgery. Yeah, that's corrective, but because you have failed to do the preventative. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I would push back on that and understanding the value that we bring from saving a company, because you're going to either make somebody some money or save somebody some money. That's the value you bring, and either it's yourself or an organization. And you need to understand that.
And I think people also need to understand that there's also a few ways to figure out what you're worth too. You know, if you are, because I just went through this a little bit actually. If you are in a company and you feel like, you know what, they're getting over on me a little bit because I bring more value, what's the best way to do that? Sometimes you got to go out and see what other people value you as. And if you see what they value you as, then you can come back and talk to your company and see what kind of true loyalty they have. And if they value you the same way.
Absolutely. And don't expect for them to know that. See, we're still talking about human beings. And it may be somebody's job to know, but they still may not know. Like you said, Phil, you may say, you go out and say, company B is willing to pay me 30% more. Company A may not have done a study to see or stay on top of where the market has shifted. They may just be behind. And now, are you going to get mad or give them an opportunity? Because it's business, it's not personal.
Absolutely.
Listen, this is what the market is. If they say, well, if you think you can get it, go get it. Well, I went and got it. Now, but oftentimes, guess what happens? We get caught up in a culture. We like the culture. We're comfortable. It's the devil we know. We don't want to change. And we just want, it's like a relationship. Why won't you stop cheating, baby? You know what I'm saying? Why won't you stop? I love you. I don't want you to treat me this way. Well, guess what? They ain't going to change. So are you, back to my point, once you know something, you're now obligated to act on it or live a life of regret. It ain't success or failure that's the biggest fears. To me, I've seen this from people who live with regret. That's what turns people face bitter and be mad at the world. The person who tried and succeeded, they happy. The person who tried and failed, they can at least be happy that they tried and they know what it's about and they can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But the person
they learned.
But the person who never tried either and felt that they could, the regret, oh no. And that's everything that we're talking about, from going to trades, even leaving the boiler room. Man, I was afraid, and I put in the book, Phil, I sat at my computer for 3 hours before I pressed the send button to terminate my employment. I had been there 11 years. I had a comfortable position. But to go from being represented, knowing I had a union job, union stewards, and all this, to go and actually, it was a big deal working at will. It was like, man, you mean somebody can just fire me because they don't like the way I look? We know now that it ain't like that. But that was my thought. Is like somebody could walk up and be like, Dan, you out of here. And I'd be like, I couldn't call a union steward.
Yeah, it's a change because you don't have those built-in protections.
Yeah, but again, that's the fear. That was the fear.
And anxiety I had, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, listen, I'm telling you. And I was a union steward at the time because I was no longer a business rep. I had started law school, but I had won so many grievances. I'm like, man, if I leave, they ain't gonna let me back. Like, some people quit and they send a resignation notice and they let them back. I'm like, I ain't one of the people they gonna let back. So once I press this send button, it's a wrap. And then when I did it, I'm like, okay, so I've been out of the board for 14 years. I only worked for the board for 11 years. So it's like somehow I've been able to feed myself, take care of my family, without being represented. No disrespect to anybody, that's part of collective bargaining. I've done it. But it's just like there is another world out there.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, Dan, you are spouting out my life story some too. It's a lot of similarities because I was a union steward, actually in contract negotiations with MGM Grand Detroit Casino at the time when I was interviewing for supervisor's role there. And then
you sold them out. There you sold them out. There you sold them out.
So I told him, I was telling them in negotiations, I said, look, I'm interviewing for this job. I might have to excuse myself. I said, but I'm gonna go hard until, you know what I'm saying, the opportunity comes. And then it happened. And the killer part is and I'll say this because Marcus knows exactly who I'm talking about. The guy who was the director there at the time. I'm not gonna say anything. I'll let anybody hold whatever, but he didn't like me. You know what I'm saying? And in many cases, he ain't like others like me either. But I thought my thoughts were he definitely didn't like me, and he hired me to that position because it would be easier to fire me, you know. And I said to myself, all right, I'm taking a chance, but I'm betting on me. You know what I mean? Because like you said, ain't nobody gonna outwork me. You know what I mean? He can't give me enough work, you know, and I'm still gonna advocate for my team, you know what I mean, that I was in. I'm gonna make sure, and when I say advocate for them, I'm not gonna be overly on the employee side, but I'm gonna make sure that they're not taken advantage of. And that didn't do anything but really, you know what I'm saying, caused me more problems, but that I had to deal with internally.
So you talk about similarities. When I quit 324, I went to go work for a company that was in negotiations. We were in negotiations with PowerLink at the time, and I left to go work for PowerLink. Now, mind you, everybody was transparent as possible, but at the end of the day, I sold them out. That's why I went. I sold everybody out, man, and got my bag and went to go take a job making $30,000 less. You know what I'm saying? If I'm selling out, then I'm hustling backwards. You know what I'm saying? Because if I sold out, I should have been gone somewhere to an island. You know, but not driving around city of Detroit.
It could have just been a better situation for you at the time. You know what I mean? And sometimes you make moves just to you make moves for your sanity. You know,
absolutely. And that's what it was. I mean, it all led me to where I am now. And I remember having this conversation with my mother. My father had been deceased for a while, but I had this conversation is that I felt with working inside the union was great, but to get to where I was seeing myself evolve to, I had to take another chance. I mean, and life is about those type of leaps without knowing where you're going to land. You know, you don't know what's on the other side, and that's what allows you to truly live is when you kind of experience that fear, that exhilaration of that's going to have you up on your toes. That's going to have your mind sharp because your mind can get dull when you start to get into a mundane, routine situation where you kind of know. I know if I start these boilers, hit these switches, hit these fans, you know, right? Take my readings. I know what my day is. I'm out of here at 2:00. I can leave at 1:45 and go. But I wanted more out of life. You know, I had four children. I had good girls, and I had a vision. What really made me go back to school and finish my bachelor's degree to go to law school is my kids were doing extremely well, like academic games and they were going, I think, Cook and going to Bates Academy. And I said, man, these girls are on a track to really, you know, continue to do some great things. And I'm like, am I giving it all I can to do everything I can, everything that's in my bag? And my cousin, who I'm named after, I remember on his deathbed, my man told me he owned like 4 businesses, always owned businesses, and was this entrepreneur his whole life. But he told me on his deathbed, he said, man, I put up my high score. He said, I showed the world what I could do with what I had. They said they called me stupid. I was 8th grade dropout. He said, but all of them needed something from me. And I was like, man, I stuck with my high score. My high score. Am I putting up my high score? You won't know until you try. And I remember seeing Kwame Kilpatrick and Freeman Hendricks doing a debate at Wayne State Law School. Frank Wu was the dean. And I remember hearing Kwame, however people feel about him, the brother was so eloquent. And we were around the same age. I was like, man, that brother ain't no better than me, no different from me. I said, the only thing is he did it. He went, finished school, went to law school. I said, so if you really want to know, let's go find out. And that's when I went back to school, man, and just cranked it out. Dean's list, magna cum laude, took the LSAT, you know, applied to Wayne, UAD, Cooley, got accepted in all of them, chose Wayne. But that was the thing that most people, when you look at social media, most people are willing to just comfort. Because again, fear. I took the bar exam last year. I graduated in 2012. I didn't take the bar until last year. I had time. I took it, should have passed it. I didn't. Do you think I was hurt by it? Hell yeah, I was hurt by it. But I've had enough failure in my life to know it's not the end of the world. Now, where I am now, do I have time to study for it again? I'm back in another flow. I don't really have time to study for it again. That's an L I'm gonna have to leave on my record until I feel like I can then challenge it again if I ever do. But in the grand scheme of things, will I leave this world undefeated? Nobody leaves this world undefeated.
Only the internet is undefeated.
Only that, oh man, that's a t-shirt. Only the internet is undefeated. So my point is that, to your point is that, how do you handle those challenges? How do you handle those defeats? And what are you willing to do to actually put into motion? Both of you guys have put into motion what many people have sat back and hoped, but were afraid to go and see. That whole quitting a comfortable job to go into the unknown is what separated all 3 of us from a lot of our contemporaries.
You know, when I was at MGM and I had put about close to 13 and a half years, man. And I remember I was ready to leave. I reached my max peak. I was a supervisor, no more growing, right? And everybody looked at me and said, why would you leave a job that you put in so much time? You got the schedule that a decent, you got a 401k. They thought it was the craziest thing for me to be ready to leave, you know?
Yeah.
You don't know the fear of the unknown, going to a new employer. And it was one of the best decisions. Nothing against MGM. MGM actually got me ready for where I'm at today. But, you know, the fear of change is what everyone was looking at, right? And not only, it was so crazy because COVID ended up happening, you know, a year and a half later. And I sat there and I thought to myself, now people are being forced to change.
Yep.
And I had to stop around. There's no telling. I probably would have been forced to change anyway, but I took the necessary step and did the change on my own. And you know, I'm more receptive to that type of change than forced to change.
Absolutely. I mean, and again, I mean, Marcus, when I look at everything that you're doing, it takes. I never forget. I was in the law. I was not the law library. I was still in the military, and I used to walk to the base and go to the library and read to study for my high pressure and third refrigeration before I went to work. And my commander saw me there one day, and I remember he came by and he saw what I was reading, and I told him what I was trying to do. He said, well, if you keep reading these books, Ringo, he said, you won't be in the boiler room long. This was like 95, 96, he said this, Colonel Pryor. And so when I look at everything you've done, I see what other people were seeing in me. Like, so it's almost like this guy ain't gonna be here long. Your dreams were bigger than where you were, and it's not knocking where you were. It's just like it's so much in you, and you weren't afraid to let it out. You're not dying with all that stuff. Man, Project Noah, that had to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And you were not afraid to let the world see it. A lot of people, man, go to their graves with stuff that they just was too afraid. They say, man, what's the worst that can happen is it didn't work. That's the worst that can happen. That's all that can happen. But you couldn't have done it staying where you are, writing a book on the experience. Bro, I'm sitting there like reading a book like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing for it to happen to you, another thing to put it into words. As we all know, man, a book, when I see people that I went to law school with, now people are writing books. As a matter of fact, this guy I went to law school with, this brother here, I don't know if I can show you the book right here. It's coming up on my
You can barely see it.
Yeah, screen.
Yeah, my screen. But this guy wrote a book. I remember when he moved here from Kentucky to start law school his first year, came to my house. I had a law school gathering, and it's a couple other people who have written books. And they tell me that I was the person that encouraged them or motivated them to do it because I did it 4 years ago. And so it just, what was inside of me, my story, Marcus' story, and now it's inspiring other people to write their own story. That's going to then have that type of effect, man. It's to me. So when we look at the journey, and I think, Phil, you said it best. It's like when you took the journey, it's going to be, man, jumping out that plane.
Yes, exactly.
And if you're trying to change, you could take, where are 3 examples of taking trades and making it work beyond the 4 walls of the occupation itself. At the end of the day, I tell people I'm still that boiler operator, regardless of you see me over here in this state working on this, working on that. I'm still that same guy that can still, start that boiler, get them fans going, get that building up and warm. I still have that same mentality, that same mindset, but it's just went into other areas, and this is still the foundation. And I hope that more people get into trades as a foundation for their occupational success. Right. It's a great place to start and stay if you want to, and it's the fastest way to entrepreneurship. I keep going back to that. If you're good at it, I look at a young partner of mine, Brand Cooksey. Perfect example. He has a company called Air Doctors.
Oh, yeah.
Doing extremely well. Started it, I think, going on this is 5th year now. I mean, has a crew of about 10 people now. I mean, it's incredible of what you can do if you get good at what you do, and then be able to evaluate the value of it, and then sell it on the market. I mean, we've all sold books, so it's like, again, what is this book worth? What do you want to price on it? Or how do you market it? It's things you're going to be forced to do once you start to go into entrepreneurship, and things that is no different than anybody else. It's how well you're willing to work at it.
You're your own boss at that point. You got to hold yourself accountable. There's no more punching in clocks and having people hold you accountable. You got to do that yourself. And some people don't have that ability. They need the clock. Some people.
But you know, Marcus, I'm gonna say this. I've always said this. We all work for ourselves. Who else name is on your paycheck?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Think about it. Like you said, they didn't want you to leave at MGM because they felt like, man, this guy, what he brings to this table, what he brings, his brand, the Marcus Weldon brand, the Phil Reed brand. That, regardless, it's whether or not you're sitting there shaking hands with the city of Detroit, with Project Noah. Under that, you're still bringing a brand. Your work product is your brand. And I try to tell people, don't get down on working for a certain company, because that is your brand. That is the labor that you're selling. And you have to determine what it's worth. If they saying we'll pay you $30 an hour, is the labor you bring worth $30 an hour? If so, that's your number one client right now. Until you build another client or other clients outside of that, they're able to use those resources to create whatever you want to. But if you don't work for yourself, then your name should be on your paycheck.
Fair point. I got a intangible, just a quick outline question for you, just because I'm curious, just from some of how the way you look at things. Did you play sports in high school?
You know, let me say this, brother. I was on the baseball team for a minute. I never went out for football because back then I was smaller than Marcus. That's hard to believe. I was actually probably about 145, 150 pounds up until I graduated. So I didn't play football, and I went out for basketball, and I have never ever made a basketball team. No matter, I think I've tried out 3 or 4 times in my life, and each time I never made the cut. So
it's all good. The only reason why I ask is because sometimes I notice that people who are quick to, that move quick is because like of sporting scenarios or other scenarios that force you to make quick decisions and have to do all that. So that was just a personal thing of me that I was just wondering. That's all.
Let me tell you this, but I'm the youngest of 4 boys. I have no sisters. And so I learn by watching. Naturally, I will learn by watching, and I'm a history buff. And I tell people the most important subject to me is not math, it's history. Because if you don't know what's happened, all this stuff just constantly replays itself. Every generation faces the challenges of its own day. I was watching something earlier and I was looking at that. I said, and I wondered, I was in my own man bag. I said, look at these kids. And then I told myself, I said, man, but we used to dance the 2 Live Crew. And they had some of the most raunchiest lyrics. I'm like, so what? Shut up, old man. Just let these kids have a moment and they'll have to deal with it in their own way. So I think that my ability to switch or change is knowing that I'm not immune to what's coming. And you either, like Marcus said, you're going to prepare for it and adjust, or it's going to roll you over. Which one are you going to try to do?
Mm-hmm.
Someone told me a quote at MGM, man. He said, we rehearse the past because the future is a mystery.
Yeah. But we even know it's coming. It's going to repeat. You guys Phil, I don't know if you have children. I know Marcus has a beautiful girl and another baby on the way. It's the thing that's frustrating with kids, because my kids are all grown. My kids will come to me and tell me I was right about something as if I should be happy that they telling me I was right about something. I knew I was right. That's why I told you.
I have 6 kids, okay. And my daughter, who is 25, came to me about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and she said, Daddy, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry because you used to be on my head about turning lights off. And I never really, paid attention to it until I had to pay my own light bill, And I said, well, it's fine to Daddy now, but I still had to pay all the extra bills because you was leaving lights on.
So that's my point. So when we look at the future, it's like when you have a parent in your life or somebody older is trying to pour into you, and you got a fortune teller, you got somebody with a crystal ball that's trying to tell you your future if you'll listen. Marcus, the things that we just saying earlier about yourself is that you're able to listen and adapt and apply. That's go. That's probably the most beautiful thing. So when we talk about the younger generation coming into this, for me to say, hey, look at a trade. I remember I worked at Renaissance High School. I was an engineer. And I remember I met with the principal, beautiful Miss Deborah Harley. And I'll never forget, I said, Miss Harley, I was kind of making $100K. But just a college prep school, and they want these kids to go out to college. No disrespect to college, but they want to go to college and get a job making $25,000, $30,000 a year with 35, and that's success to them. And I'm saying, Miss Harley, these kids have the aptitude. They can go over to this apprenticeship or go over to school, and they can be making, what I'm making, Miss Harley. She said, Mr. Ringo, I'll never forget, we sat in her office. She said, Mr. Ringo, you are 100% right. She said, but this is a college prep school. She said, and if I told these kids to go into a trade, their parents would have me threw out of here the very next morning. I said, damn, you mean to tell me that we sending our kids off to damn it, to die death prison for image, for prestige that ain't real, rather than have this for real? And she said, absolutely. And I never forgot that. I've told that story a million times. And I just said, wow. Like, and this is the education system, Phil. This is educators who know this young man at the time, Phil, I might have been 29, 30 years old. I had 2 cars, home, Rosedale Park. I'm thinking, like, I'm telling they can get there faster than I got here. But she said, hey, the parents want them to go this route.
It's not just that. I mean, it's all over, but she's absolutely right. It's her job in a college prep school to prep the kids to go to college. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the where I think they let them down is that they're not telling them that they need to look at what major, because if you're going to go to college and spend $25,000 a year on a major, the return on that, the ROI, return on investment, needs to be, fairly quick if possible. So I don't want to go spend $25,000 a year on a job that's going to make me 40. It don't add up. If I'm going to spend 25,000, I need to be moving towards a job that's going to start me off around that 60 to 70 range where I can continue to grow, but that's going to help me out. But a lot of people aren't looking at that. They're not thinking about it. And then they don't even understand that in the trades, because first of all, most learned people don't understand that trades is an education.
Yes.
It is an education. And excuse me, with the proper apprenticeship, it is a 4-year to 5-year education, very similar to getting a degree,
Yes.
And I'm not disrespecting anyone who has a degree. I don't have a degree. You know what I mean? I do plan on going back and getting at least my bachelor's, but I've done what I've done without having it because I have some college, but I have that learned knowledge of being able to deal with things, and so that's where I'm at.
Value. It's getting to the point now where I don't know if you've seen, but certain employers are not even considering it. They don't even and I think another 20 years, it's not going to even be a requirement. If that, maybe 10.
Depending on the field. But in our field,
depending on the field.
Yeah, in our field, a lot of times if you're coming up straight out of college, you don't have the idea what's going on in the field.
Right.
You don't know what's happening. And so you have what the books are telling you about certain things, but some of that stuff goes out the door when you're dealing with real life situations. And so it's just one of those things where I think that we are giving our kids, we're not giving our kids all of their options. And I think seeing that. So in that light, right now, if my son were to come to you, my son is graduating senior. If my son were to come to you and say, Mr. Ringo, I'm thinking about going to school and becoming some sort of an engineer. He wants to be an electrical engineer. That's his thought pattern. But I'm also considering, trades, like what actually what would you tell him exactly those words? Like, hey, how would you go about doing your, what would you do?
You know what I would tell them? Seriously, I'm telling kids to get into energy efficiency. And not because I'm in it. I'm telling them because I've been in rooms, gentlemen, where the money that has been earmarked, regardless of political party, is astronomical. So I would say him to get into a trades, get some type of way that he can, number one, take care of himself first and foremost. And if he wants to go to school, there's no rush to go to school because you're not in a race. You're not, regardless, the only competition is with yourself. And if you have to look at what are you really, really trying to do? If you're gonna have to borrow money to go to school, I would say hold on for going to school just yet. Because I really do feel in another 10 years or so, you're going to have companies are going to say, we'll take you off the street. They'll have their own internal program like they used to have back in the day. And IBM and all those companies that have you, GM, they'll come here, we'll put you on our management training program and you'll have your training through them.
Right.
I really don't, the value of a college degree has outpriced itself. When you started talking about for a social work degree, going to University of Michigan, coming out with $150,000, $200,000 in debt, that is, I was about to say something. Is absolutely crazy. So when you look at a chemical engineering degree, I would say, do you like chemistry or did somebody tell you these people make money? Because if that's the case, if it's about making money, there's easier ways to make money and then have your money making money for you. And I would say get a trade first, then look at if you want to go to school, because then like you said, you'll know which way your career needs to go and where you need to spend money. Because a lot of kids go off to school and within a year or two, they doing what? Switching majors. Very few people, college ain't high school where you got 4 years to complete this thing. There's a lot of kids they on that 6-year plan.
Or 30-year plan.
Or 30-year plan. And because number one, either life is going to happen to you, or you're gonna say, well, I really don't like this, or this is a little too hard for me, or this ain't what I'm into, or And so now, but the whole time, the gas meter is running. You know what I'm saying? It's costing more and more money because guess what? You gotta live.
Yeah.
And I tell you this, and when some of my white friends, I hear them talk about school, and I had a guy say, he said, I just want you to hurry up and graduate. He told his daughter, I just want you to hurry up and graduate. He was just trying to shut the faucet off because it's failing. Every time, well, Daddy, I'm looking to do this, or Daddy, I'm looking to do that now. And I told my kids in kindergarten, Phil, if you're not a good investment, don't look for no college money from me. Because if you don't do nothing with it when it's free, I know you ain't gonna do nothing with it when it costs somebody something.
Well, hey, that's sound advice right there. Like I'm into business, I'm into making money, and I'm not into making bad investments. So exactly. If you can show me that it's a good investment, then I got you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But if I'm not into putting, bad money after bad,
right.
or good money after bad.
Listen, I hear people all the time. I'm in meetings. They talk about their kids at this school. I don't have that. My youngest is Alabama State. My middle daughter graduated from Alabama A&M. My oldest girl has been bouncing back and forth, but now she's down in school. And my son didn't. I think he went to Wayne County, then he stopped doing that. But that's no reflection on me. See, sometimes parents take what their kids are doing as a reflection on them. I don't. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, all my brothers were off in the stuff. And I was the youngest. I didn't get into any of that stuff. But I don't take it as, it's not going to be a prideful moment for me to say, my kid is at the University of Michigan. Now, if they were there on an academic scholarship and they made the dean's list, I'd be the first one I probably have on my Facebook post.
Mm-hmm.
But for me to be paying $50,000 or borrowing money for them to go, for me to say that, I don't need it that bad.
Yeah,
I don't need it that bad. I don't need to say my kids are going to Howard, and I'm sitting here looking at how I got to pay a bill. No, I don't need that bad.
No, I can respect that. My daughter graduated from Michigan State, and and she got out into she graduated with a biomedical research degree, with a microbiology minor, and then she got out and she started working in places, and she was making a little bit of money here and there, but she wasn't realizing her full potential. And I think some of it was because she had just said, all right, I'm gonna take some time. And then, once you have graduated and then you out for like 5-6 months, it's like, oh, wait a minute, you should be doing something. And so then that took her away from it. And then, another thing is that she didn't quite understand about like resumes and how that can affect you even being picked up. And so, she came to my wife and said, hey, can you look at my resume? And so my wife was like, oh, baby, you need some help. She was like, we got to do something different, because right here, how could you ever expect to get, picked up with this? And so that's a whole nother aspect, that needs to be discussed, when you're out here, because specifically with trades, most trades people aren't used to putting together, seasoned trade people aren't used to putting together resumes and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
And so those are all things that have to be discussed, and we need to do more teaching. I mean, I think when Marcus told me or said earlier that you were talking about doing trade schools and trades related schooling in in the community and things of that nature. I mean, I think there's opportunities for that. I don't think there's definitely opportunities for that. There's opportunities for just life. Just teaching life to some of the kids. I mean, about bank accounts, about interest and credit cards and all that, all the stuff like that. I think those are some things that need to be tied into it as well, because it's one thing to go get the bag, but if you don't know how to properly govern yourself and your spending, then you're going to blow the bag,
Right. I'm getting the bag, and I realize secure the bag, meaning that you set up now from now on. That bag is secured. Because like I said, getting it and blowing it, that's what I've done it. I've gotten in and blown it a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But now, you know what I'm saying? When you're like, man, where'd it go? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, now it's about securing it.
Right. Right. So, I mean, I'm just saying that I think that, you've been spot on A1 with everything that you've come and said and talked about here.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you getting on here and giving us the time. Marcus, is there anything that because I know you sometimes throw out a question before we end and stuff like that. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up or discuss with Dan before we give him back his Sunday morning? I don't know if you're preparing for football or church or whatever you're preparing
for sure. Football for sure.
Yeah. Man, no, he's hit everything, man. I'm just gonna make a comment. Dan and I, we have side conversations, and throughout the week or whenever we talk, he's always like a shot in the arm of adrenaline that keep me going. And we always talk about Booker T. Washington. That's one of our guys.
Absolutely.
And to Dan's point about the skilled trades leading to entrepreneurship, Booker T. Washington, man, he was a slave. He got, he got out of slavery, and basically, let's fast forward the story. He started his own trade school, but a lot of the skills that the slaves were doing for free for the plantations, he took that and they were doing these skills and now making money.
Yep.
I'm about bricklayers who was making bricks anyway. Now I'm gonna make this business and create bricks, start making money with these bricks. And by the way, I'm gonna also make these bricks to build a school. So I just wanted to make that comment because Black people have been using the trade to lead into entrepreneurship way back during slavery.
And we forgot about that.
And forgot about it, yeah.
And so I wanted to go back to Bren. It's like, so he went to Cass Tech, which is another college prep school. But Bren knew off the rip, I'm going to start my HVAC business. I'm brought up in this. And what I'm saying is, to your point, is that we send people off to go to school to go work at these jobs instead of creating these businesses. Like you said, if you're a bricklayer, but if it's Weldon Bricklaying Company that's been in business for 100 years, and we know them around town because we know little Marcus Weldon, the eighth, driving that Bentley, we don't, we don't create the institutions that we need as people. And I try to tell people, when you get in these positions and you're in charge of an RFP process, and you see a competent company coming from the community, give them an opportunity. People don't know this, but one of the largest, most prestigious Black law firms in the nation is right here in Detroit, called Lewis and Monday. Lewis and Monday got his start when Coleman Young got elected mayor. They went to Coleman Young and said, "Hey man, we just graduated University of Michigan Law School. We'd like to come work for you." He said, "No, you don't. Start a law firm. I'm gonna give y'all some business." Gave them some business, put them on.
And look at them now.
Look at them now.
See, I love that, and that's gonna open this up for one more quick second. I mean, so
yeah, I'm good.
If you have an opportunity to throw somebody some business and they take care of that, you know what I'm saying? It's one thing when you say, all right, I'm gonna throw somebody some business, and then they BS around, because from there, all right, look, I tried, but right. You ain't handling business. But when they jump in and they succeed, and then they become, right. I don't know Lewis and Monday like that, but you said the largest, but they took the ball, you know what I'm saying, and they took it to the end zone, they scored.
Yep.
I love that. And so I am truly in, I'm in that position sometimes where if I see a company and they talk about it, I want to give them the opportunity to grow. Mm-hmm. So I think that as we get in positions that we are, if we can, if it makes fiscal sense for us to give someone an opportunity,
absolutely,
go ahead and give that opportunity and give them the opportunity to shine and get better and grow. So, I mean, that's very important. I appreciate you saying that as well.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, create, because in the levels that we are in, man, it can be very fleeting. But if you help people grow something, you may have a spot to go to.
Absolutely,
because that's what happens.
Absolutely.
Just look at the NFL, man. How these guys, coaches, they go. He was 7-9 or 4-12. We not coach over here. Relationships.
And next thing you know, he the special teams coordinator building himself back up.
Exactly.
Things happen. No, absolutely. We talked about it earlier. Relationships.
Check still rolling in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
So again, I sorry. Yeah, I know we were starting to wind down. You talked that about. I felt that you needed to say something. So, Dan, I appreciate you immensely for getting on here with us and talking about it. I mean, talking about your history with Local 324, Local 547, which actually ties us all in, because I am a graduate from some of the programs that they had there. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, my claim to fame is that I'm still on their website to this date for training that they had on there.
Okay.
I actually got them to spell my name right, after a couple of years, but it's all good.
Right,
but I mean, that you've made a lot of moves. and to a point where now, you know, you are the senior, you know what I'm saying, vice president of, and I don't want to say it wrong, but say it for
Walker
me.
Miller Energy. Walker Miller Energy Services. Yep. 22-year-old company right here in Detroit, Michigan, black owned, female owned, and it's a B Corp, certified B Corp. Certified B Corp means they have on papers with the state of Michigan as a company that will put people first before profits, as well as put environment first before profits. So a lot of things you have to go through to become a certified B Corp. It's only 7,000 in the world, and I think only about 400 or so in Michigan. And she's the only black, or the first black female certified B Corp in Michigan.
There it is. I always appreciate that too. Any last words that you want to say, Dan, first before I turn it over to Marcus so he can close out?
I would say, man, hey, find a trade, find a school, and build, save your money, work on your credit. You know what I'm saying? Invest.
Credit. Don't blow it, right?
Exactly. Invest. And again, and then look and see what you want to do. But learn how to do something that you own yourself. Ownership and equity. And when you get a trade, that's something you own. That's skills that you own.
And one last thing, just so the people can hear, Dan, would you list off your licenses again, like you did earlier, just to let people know, like just the many things that you've done?
Absolutely. We'll do it like when they, you know, I'm a big boxing fan, so we'll say, you know, I'm the first class stationary engineer license, first class refrigeration license, unlimited refrigeration journeyman, mechanical contractor, 4 sections under the state of Michigan mechanical contractor's license, chief powerhouse, city of Dearborn, American Society of Power Engineers, chief engineer. Let's see, I have trying to think of, man, I got a couple of BPI certified building analysts. I'm thinking I'm losing a couple of them. Associate's degree in mechanical electrical technology, bachelor's degree, interdisciplinary studies, and law degree from Wayne State University, Juris Doctor degree.
Hey, that's what I call a bad man right there.
I'm there.
Airman, the CEO.
Yeah, author. There you go. Yeah, exactly. Reigning and defending. There you go.
And where can people find that book?
All on Amazon. All on Amazon. Books A Million. All the online retailers. The books is listed with all their on time. Target, Walmart. You name it. You just type it in, and it'll take you to the various online retail. It's also an audio. So the Boiler Books, Airman the CEO, also on audible.com.
And that's good for people like me who are, you know, the books that Absolutely. I pick up are the history and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So I prefer audio. I prefer Audible too.
Yes, sir. Well, Dan, man, it's been great. I appreciate you coming on, man. This is
absolutely. It's been fun. Anytime, man. I love what you guys are doing. And if you need, anytime if you need another voice, I'm here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Well, this is our ending segment on Director's Cut on Trade, man. Appreciate our listeners, and catch y'all next time.
Have a good one, everyone.
All right. Take care.
All right.